Sarah Mitchell always thought that happiness came from simple things, quiet mornings, daily routines, and knowing someone loved you. She lived in Portland and built her entire life around these ideas. Her house was cozy, filled with warm lights, soft blankets, and framed photos from her years of marriage with her husband, Michael. For a long time, she believed their love could handle anything. But everything started changing way before she realized what was happening. Michael's behavior shifted slowly, almost silently. He came home late more and more, always saying his meetings ran longer than expected. He was there, but not really there, sitting at the dinner table with his mind somewhere else, checking his phone when he thought she wasn't watching, answering her questions with short, distracted replies. Sarah tried to ignore it. She told herself he was just tired, overworked, stressed. She tried to hold onto the version of him she knew, even as that version slowly disappeared. Still, she felt something in the air, something she didn't want to say out loud. One rainy evening, everything finally came into the light. Rain fell softly against the windows, creating silver streaks across the living room floor. Sarah was folding laundry when she heard Michael's footsteps. Slow, heavy, different. There was no warmth in them, only strange tension that made her heart tighten. "Sarah," he said, and his voice sounded different. "We need to talk." The moment he said those words, her entire world stopped. She sat down on the arm of the couch, holding tight to a towel she'd been folding. Michael didn't sit. He stood with his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor instead of looking at her. "I don't know how to say this," he started, "but I've developed feelings for someone else." Sarah's fingers froze around the towel. The words hit too suddenly, too sharply. She felt like the room had tilted, leaving her unable to breathe. She waited for him to explain, to make it hurt less, to say it wasn't what it sounded like. But he didn't. He just stood there, silent, letting the truth settle painfully between them. Her chest felt tight. Her throat closed up. She wasn't angry yet. She was confused, hurt, and overwhelmed by a truth she never thought she'd face. She'd spent years believing in their strong marriage, only to find out that Michael's heart had quietly drifted somewhere she couldn't reach. Before she could gather her thoughts, soft footsteps came down the stairs. Their 19-year-old son, Tyler, entered the room. He'd heard the tension in their voices. He saw Sarah's shaking hands and Michael's distant eyes. His face changed instantly from curious to concerned. "Mom," he asked, his voice gentle. "What's wrong?" Sarah tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. There was too much pain, too much shock. She felt small, like her feelings were slipping out of control. Michael looked away, unable to face either of them. Tyler walked straight to his mother and sat beside her. He placed his hand on hers without thinking twice, even though he didn't know what had been said. He could feel that something had broken inside their home. He didn't ask questions. He simply stayed close, offering silent support. The three of them sat in the same room, but it felt like they were worlds apart. Michael shifted uncomfortably, then said quietly, "I think I should give you some space," before walking out of the room. He didn't wait for a response. The door closed gently behind him, leaving a silence that stung more than any fight could have. Tyler kept holding his mother's hand. Sarah leaned into him, not crying, but shaking with pain she never expected to face. She'd always been the strong one, the calm one, but this moment tore something open inside her. Tyler didn't push her to speak. He didn't demand answers. He simply stayed at her side, sensing that whatever happened, she needed him more than ever. In that moment, the bond between mother and son grew stronger, shaped by the quiet heartbreak settling between them. Finally, Sarah whispered, He's in love with someone else." Tyler's eyes widened, but he didn't react with anger or shock. Instead, he put his arm gently around her shoulders. "I'm here, Mom," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." She closed her eyes, letting those words wrap around her like a warm blanket. It was strange how one sentence from her husband could break her, yet one from her son could give her the strength to breathe again. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know how to face the next day or even the next hour. But she did know she wasn't alone. Sarah looked at Tyler, seeing not just her son, but the young man he was becoming. Steady, caring, fiercely loyal. In the quiet of that painful evening, she realized something important. The world she built might be breaking, but there was still someone standing with her, ready to help her through whatever came next. For the first time that night, she let out a shaky breath, not of defeat, but of courage. Nothing would ever be the same again. But this was only the beginning of a story she hadn't expected to live. The morning after Michael admitted his feelings for another woman felt strangely quiet. The house, once full of warm sounds, now seemed empty. Sarah woke early, but her body felt heavy, as if the pain from last night had settled into her bones. She walked into the kitchen, hoping a cup of tea would calm her shaking hands. But the moment she saw Michael packing a small overnight bag near the door, her heart tightened again. "I think I should stay somewhere else for a while," he said, avoiding her eyes. Sarah didn't argue. She didn't ask where he was going or who he'd be with. Her voice felt locked inside her. She just nodded. Michael paused for a second, maybe guilt, maybe uncertainty. But then he walked out. The door closed softly. But for Sarah, it sounded final, like a chapter ending without warning. Tyler came into the room minutes later. He noticed the empty space where Michael's bag had been and understood, without needing an explanation. His face hardened with quiet protectiveness. He stepped closer to his mother. "Mom, did he leave?" he asked. She nodded again. That simple gesture made her feel like she might fall apart. But Tyler was quicker. He poured her tea, placed it gently into her hands, and sat across from her. "You don't have to pretend," he said calmly. "You don't have to act strong for me." His words unlocked something inside her. Not tears, just honesty. Sarah finally whispered, "I don't know what's happening. Everything feels like it's slipping away." Tyler leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. "Mom, listen to me. Dad made his choice. But I'm here. You're not alone." His voice wasn't dramatic, but it carried a strength she desperately needed. She looked at him, the boy she raised, now becoming a man right in front of her, and felt a small wave of comfort wash over the chaos. The next few days moved quickly, but painfully. Michael barely called. When he did, the conversations were short and awkward. He didn't explain anything, didn't offer comfort, didn't show the warmth he once had. Sarah tried to keep her mind busy. Cooking simple meals, folding laundry. But everything reminded her of the life she thought she still had. Tyler watched her closely, quietly stepping in whenever he noticed her fading into silence. He cleaned the house without being asked. He made dinner, even though he was still learning. He sat with her during the evenings when the loneliness felt strongest. He didn't try to fix what happened. He simply stayed close. One evening, after 2 days of barely eating, Sarah sat on the couch staring at the blank TV screen. Her thoughts drifted between memories and questions she didn't want to face. Tyler walked in, holding a bowl of soup he'd made himself. "You need to eat something," he said softly. Sarah shook her head. "I'm not hungry." "I know," Tyler replied, setting the bowl on the table. "But you still need to take care of yourself." His quiet insistence made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in weeks. She took a small sip, not for herself, but because she didn't want to worry him. After a long pause, Tyler said, "Mom, can I say something?" She looked up. "I'm not angry at you," he said, "and you don't need to feel embarrassed. This isn't your fault. Whatever Dad is going through, it's his choice, but I choose you." Those words broke through her numbness. Sarah reached out and held his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You won't have to find out," he replied. Slowly, her days started taking shape again, not because the pain disappeared, but because Tyler kept creating small moments that pulled her back to herself. He drove her to the grocery store even though she said she could manage. He took her for short drives around the city just to get her out of the house. He played old songs she used to love, hoping they'd bring her a little peace. But even with his support, the reality of Michael's absence always hung in the air. Asterisk asterisk every time the phone buzzed. Sarah felt a jolt of hope and fear. Sometimes it was Michael. Sometimes it wasn't. And every time it wasn't. The disappointment stung. One night, as rain tapped on the windows again, Tyler found her sitting alone in the living room. "Mom," he said, keeping his voice gentle, "you deserve someone who stays. Someone who doesn't make you question your own worth." She didn't answer, but her silence was full of meaning. She knew he was right. She knew she'd spent many years putting others first, hoping her love would always be enough. Now she finally saw how fragile that belief had been. Tyler's presence became her anchor. His steady voice, asterisk asterisk, his small acts of kindness, his constant reassurance, all of it held her together when she thought she might fall apart. She realized her son wasn't just comforting her. He was reminding her that she still had a reason to stand, breathe, and move forward. She was not abandoned. She was not forgotten. She was not broken beyond repair. By the end of the week, something new began to grow inside her. Not strength, not yet, but the first quiet seed of it, and she didn't know it yet. But the next chapter would bring a shift she never expected, a shift that would test everything all over again. 3 weeks passed, and life inside the Mitchell home settled into a fragile routine. Sarah moved through each day slowly, trying to hold herself together. Tyler made sure she wasn't alone, filling the house with small signs of normal life, music playing softly, warm meals on the stove, quiet conversations that helped her feel steady again. Even with the pain still sitting in her chest, she was learning how to breathe through it. But on a cold Sunday afternoon, everything shifted again. Sarah was folding laundry in the living room when she heard the front door open. The sound startled her. Tyler looked up from the kitchen table. They both froze. Michael stepped inside. He looked tired. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes dull, as if he hadn't slept well. He stood in the hallway like someone unsure if he was welcome. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, "can we talk?" Tyler walked forward, instantly placing himself between his mother and his father. "Only if Mom wants to." Sarah hesitated. A rush of old feelings swept through her. Confusion, sadness, fear of reopening wounds. But she nodded because avoiding the conversation wouldn't make anything easier. They moved to the living room. Sarah sat on the edge of the couch. Tyler stood close, arms crossed, ready to step in if needed. Michael sat across from them, rubbing his hands together nervously. After a long silence, he spoke. "I ended things with her." Sarah blinked, unsure if she heard him right. Michael looked down as he continued. "It wasn't what I thought it was, and being away from home made me realize how much I've damaged everything." Tyler didn't speak, but his jaw tightened. Michael continued, slowly, as if forcing himself to face the truth. "I made a mistake, a big one, and I want to fix this. I want to fix us." Sarah felt her heart twist. These were words she once wanted to hear, but now they didn't bring comfort. They brought confusion. She looked at Michael carefully. His face showed regret, but regret didn't erase weeks of pain. Before she could respond, Tyler stepped closer. "Dad," he said firmly, "you left her. You broke her trust. You can't expect everything to go back to normal just because you say you're sorry." Michael took a slow breath. "I know. I don't expect forgiveness right away. I want a chance." Sarah stared at the floor. Part of her missed the life they had. Family dinners, quiet evenings, walking hand in hand through the farmer's market. But another part remembered the coldness in his voice when he admitted loving another woman. That memory burned too deep to ignore. She finally spoke. "I need time." Michael nodded, accepting it without argument. "I understand." For a moment, no one said anything. The air was thick with everything unspoken. Sarah felt Tyler's hand on her shoulder, a quiet reminder that she wasn't facing this alone. The next few days were awkward. Michael stayed in the guest room, He tried to help with chores, tried to be kind, tried to show he was serious. But the distance between him and Sarah felt bigger than the space between rooms. Trust didn't return just because he knocked on the door again. Sarah watched him closely. She saw his efforts, but she also remembered how quickly he'd walked away before. She didn't know if she could risk her heart breaking. Again, one evening, as she was preparing dinner, Michael approached her in the kitchen. "I want to be honest," he said quietly. "I didn't come back because I felt guilty. I came back because I realized you're the person I want to grow old with." Sarah looked up, surprised by the sincerity in his eyes, but the pain inside her felt too fresh for romantic words. She stepped back slightly. "Michael, I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't know if I can feel the same way anymore." He swallowed hard. "What can I do?" Sarah shook her head. "I don't have the answer right now." He backed away, giving her space. Later that night, after Michael had gone upstairs, Taylor found her standing by the window. "You okay, Mom?" "I don't know," she admitted. Taylor stood beside her. "You don't owe him anything just because he came back," he said gently. "You deserve to heal at your own pace." Sarah rested her head against the glass, watching the street lights blur. "He looks lost," she whispered. "Maybe he is," Tyler said. "But that doesn't mean you have to carry him." Sarah turned toward her son, grateful for his steady support. She realized he'd become her source of strength during the darkest weeks of her life. She leaned on him, not because he replaced anything Michael lacked, but because he offered something pure, unconditional loyalty. Throughout the week, Michael tried to show change. He planned small family dinners, talked more openly, apologized without excuses. Sarah saw the effort, and part of her softened, but the fear of trusting him again stayed close. Her heart was still bruised. One night at dinner, Michael finally said, "I want to fight for our marriage, but I know I can't rush you, so I'll wait." His voice was honest. His eyes held regret. But Sarah knew that no matter what he said, the next step had to come from her, not him. She sat quietly for a moment, then nodded. "We'll take this one day at a time." It wasn't a promise of forgiveness. It wasn't a promise of staying together. ***. It was simply a beginning, uncertain, complicated, but real. Sarah didn't know which direction her heart would choose. All she knew was that the days ahead would test her in ways she hadn't prepared for. And somewhere deep inside, she sensed that the hardest part of the story had not yet unfolded. Sarah woke early the next morning feeling a strange calm in her chest. It wasn't peace, but it wasn't panic either. It was something in between, like standing in the doorway of a new life she hadn't fully stepped into yet. The house was quiet. Michael was in the guest room. Tyler was still asleep. For the first time in weeks, Sarah had a moment alone with her thoughts. She made coffee and sat near the window. The sun was rising slowly, painting the sky with soft orange lines. She watched the light move across the street, realizing she'd changed in ways she didn't fully understand. Yet, the heartbreak had shaken her, but it had also opened her eyes. She wasn't the same woman who silently accepted every problem, hoping things would fix themselves. She'd grown. Quietly. Painfully. But surely. Later that day, Michael came downstairs. He looked nervous, like he wasn't sure if he had the right to stand in his own kitchen. Sarah noticed the hesitation, but didn't speak first. She waited. He cleared his throat. "Sarah, I know you're still hurt. I know I can't undo what I did. But I'm here. I want to do things right." She nodded but kept her voice steady. "I appreciate that, but I still need time." Michael exhaled sharply, not in anger, but in acceptance. "I'm willing to wait, as long as it takes." The words sounded sincere, but Sarah didn't let them sway her heart. She'd heard promises before, promises that had been broken quietly and painfully. She needed more than words. She needed clarity. Over the next few weeks, the three of them moved around each other carefully. Michael helped with chores, cooked dinner sometimes, attended counseling sessions with Sarah. He listened more than he talked. He tried to show change through small actions. Buying groceries, fixing the leaky faucet, cleaning the yard. His effort was real, and Sarah saw it. But effort alone didn't erase the memory of the night he admitted loving someone else. Sarah focused on her own healing. She joined a local art group. Met new people. Started painting again, something she'd given up years ago. The colors, the brush strokes, the quiet moments of creating something beautiful gave her comfort. She felt alive in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Tyler stayed by her side through it all. He supported her decisions, never pushing her to stay with Michael or to leave him. He simply reminded her every day that she mattered, that she deserved love, that didn't break her spirit. His presence helped her grow stronger. One evening, after returning from her art class, Sarah found Michael waiting in the living room. He looked anxious, but calm. "Can we talk?" he asked. She nodded and sat across from him. "I visited my therapist today," he began, "and I realized something important. I can't expect you to trust me again. Not soon, maybe not ever. But I want you to know I'm truly sorry." Sarah felt a small shift inside her. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Michael continued, "I didn't come back because I didn't have anywhere else to go. I came back because I realized what I had was real, and losing it made me see what I'd taken for granted." Sarah didn't interrupt. She listened, calm and steady. "I hope one day you can look at me without remembering the pain I caused," he said. "If we rebuild, I want it to be because you genuinely want to, not because you feel obligated." Sarah took a breath before speaking. "I care about you, Michael. I always will. But things aren't the same. Something inside me broke when you left. And even though I'm healing, I don't know if what we had can come back." Michael nodded slowly, accepting the truth in her voice. "It's okay," he said gently. "Take all the time you need." Sarah appreciated his patience, but she also knew something he didn't. She wasn't choosing between him and loneliness. She was choosing between who she used to be and who she was becoming. Later that night, Tyler joined her on the porch. They watched the quiet neighborhood under the soft glow of the streetlights. "You're thinking a lot," Tyler said. She smiled softly. "I am, about Dad, about myself," she replied. "About what I want my life to look like." Tyler nodded. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Sarah placed her hand on his. "You've been my strength, Tyler. I don't know how I would have walked through this without you." He gave a shy smile. "You've always been strong, Mom. You just forgot for a little while." His words warmed her heart. As the days passed, Sarah started feeling stronger.